it? Why are you taking so long? You should have been done already by now. And I'm just there trying to write on the blackboard, and literally I remember my mind blanking out, and I cannot think anymore. I cannot think at all. Not only solve that hard problem, but I'm just like holding the chalk in my hand and thinking, oh my god, I almost feel like I'm not present there. Welcome everyone to Life with Liza podcast. Our mission at Life with Liza is to share people's stories and the challenges that they have overcome, so that those who are listening in can get the strength, the courage, and the hope to be their better selves. Today we have a special edition episode, and I'll be your guest. Thank you so much for joining in and for aspiring to become your better self, and for actually taking action and investing your time into getting all of this information. And I hope that it does help you on your journey. So the theme for today's episode is the power of the willpower and the power of, I think it's better if I just start telling the story. So I remember back in my middle school and my high school years, I've had a very, very strict math teacher. And literally she would, every math class, which we had like 5 times a week or 4 to 5 times a week, she would call me up to the blackboard for the hardest task, for the hardest problem to solve, and I would have to solve it. And then I always felt just so petrified before every class, and I had to be so prepared, and because otherwise I would just lose my mind if I wasn't. And then I remember there were a few times when my math teacher would call me out to the blackboard, and she would start putting pressure while I was solving the problem. She would be like, come on, do it, you cannot do it, why are you taking so long? You should have been done already by now. And I'm just there trying to write on the blackboard, and literally I remember my mind blanking out, and I cannot think anymore. I cannot think at all. Not only solve that hard problem, but I'm just like holding the chalk in my hand and thinking, oh my god, I almost feel like I'm not present there. And then she comes to the board, it's like, oh, looks so disappointed, and then she says, oh my god, come on, okay, just like do this last thing and then you can just sit down. And the last thing said like 7 times 6, and I look at it and I don't know the answer. I just cannot multiply 7 by 6 because I'm in such emotional distress that my mind cannot think. And then I just write something down and then sit down, and I feel like I'm shaking because I feel like I've been put under so much stress and pressure in front of the whole class, and I failed, and I just felt so bad about that, about failing my math teacher. And then I remember just sitting there in the math class and just waiting for it to end because it's just too intense for me. And my math teacher is like, okay, there are no second chances in life. Life doesn't give you second chances, but I will. Okay, go back to the blackboard and solve another problem. And then I went to the blackboard and I managed to solve it, and I calmed down and I sit down. And then it was such an interesting experience, because making and being able to concentrate under pressure has become one of my superpowers. And at the same time, it's just like such an invaluable skill, because I had that math teacher for, let's say, 5 years. And in the last year of my high school, when I was solving a certain problem, I would be so concentrated that I could disregard completely everything that's happening around me. And whatever she would say would not make me lose my concentration. I just was there solving the problem. She could be saying, how long will it take you, blah blah blah. I was just so focused on a certain moment, and I knew that nothing can distract me. And I felt so invincible, almost so powerful. And then I realized that basically what she has taught me over these years, I mean, it could sound a bit traumatizing, but what that has taught me is how important it is to be able to think straight under pressure. Because this was one of the best things that prepared me for life, Because in life, there are so many things when we have to think on our feet, we have to think very fast. And most of the times in important circumstances, we also have to think under pressure. So to be able to concentrate on something that requires a lot of cognitive ability and not to give in to pressure, what anyone else around you is saying, is just literally a superpower. And I'm sharing this story because I think this not only shows the power, the power, willpower that we have in ourselves, the power of being able to work under pressure, to disregard what other people around you are saying, but also at the same time, another thing that it shows, that is the meaning that I decided to assign to that story. Because I could have assigned the meaning that, oh my God, I cannot believe that my math teacher did this to me. Instead, I'm saying I cannot believe this happened for me, that I got this superpower. And just see how by me changing the language and how I talk about this a certain situation, in one case you're like, oh my God, I wish it happened for me as well. I wish I also had this superpower of being able to work and concentrate under pressure. And otherwise it's like, oh my God, if I was saying, I cannot believe this was happened to me and that was such a stressful, traumatic experience, then you're like, oh my God, poor you. But I find it that taking ownership for what has happened for you and using the right language and also seeing the beauty in every lesson is so empowering. And I wanted to remind you that it is you who chooses the meaning that you assign to any situation that has happened in your life. And you can also choose that meaning and choose that meaning to be so empowering, because you cannot alter the experience that you have had, but you can absolutely, it is in your hands, it's in you have the power to alter the meaning of the story and make it an empowering one. It almost reminds me of that book, Thomas Sawyer. I'm not sure what's the name of the book in English, but the guy there was punished and he had to paint the fence. And then all of his friends came by and wanted to make fun of him, and then he made it sound as if it was the most entertaining and fun activity. And then in the end they end up paying him so that they could try out and paint the fence, just because of how he was presenting this a certain stage. He was like, oh my God, this is the most fun activity that I get to do. And I think that's just such a simple example from that book for children, but it happens for us in our real lives with all the situations that are happening right now, and we get to choose how we talk about them, and how we talk about them also changes how they impact us. So in my case, the story with my math teacher, as traumatizing as it might sound to you, it was very empowering for me in the end, and I got this superpower, and the superpower has served me well in my life. I hope this episode helps you to choose the right meaning for any situation, for any stories that have happened in your life, and you always go down the empowering path. Thank you. Please don't forget to subscribe to this channel if you enjoyed this episode, and I see you tomorrow.